Good morning, beautiful people. My sincerest apologies. It's 11:15. Okay, it's 13 minutes past 11, and we are ready for this morning's broadcast of Unfiltered with Ntabise Mwepe. Let me take this opportunity to greet you in the name of Jesus Christ. I am saved. I am a lover of Christ, and I trust that, I will be of benefit, or we will be having a fruitful discussion this morning. Please invite your friends to join us. Please invite anyone that you feel that can benefit from this discussion. And while we wait for them, I'm gonna do this while we wait for them, while we wait for you to share this video, while we wait for you to get on board with us with what we are doing. The good Lord just guide us as we have this discussion this morning. Cherry, or see you in a few minutes. God bless you.
Linzwigila Jesu Linzwigila Jesu Ayer mamele murenarita pulus Kiena Linzwigila Jesu Ayer mamele murenarita pulus Kiena bua linzwikila Jesu linzwikila iliwone lelikele inya ali vivi leti mani kisi dilevenya Lao kiliwone lelitele ena hali vivi lona letipane isi dilevenya ulitiwa Lera levi mata mako kisiveru lila tela seti le mutolo untali kosalera levi mata mako Kisiveru lila tela seti le motrolo ulijua amazing ulijua amazing
Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, beautiful people. Good morning, good morning. Here we are. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Monday morning. And as I said, I experienced some technical challenges that really just made it difficult for me to come through on time at 10 o'clock. So I hope you'll forgive me, and I hope that we'll have this wonderful ride together. We spoke, and I released a poster in preparation for today's podcast. And I said we are speaking about the caption, "You can live again." We are talking about living life, bouncing back. We are talking about rising above the disappointments, the hurts, and the pains that life throws back at you. So I'm hoping that with this session, with this podcast, we will be able to help each other so that we can move forward, so that we can have a better outlook on life. Those of you who follow me, we have had several discussions on this very platform where we spoke about the importance of positive attitude, the importance of tuning out negative energy, the importance of surrounding yourself with people who nurture your dreams, the importance of various other factors that we captured in the previous podcast that contribute to our mental health. And today we are at it again, speaking about bouncing back from those difficult situations. My name is Ntabi Sengwepe, and I hope that you are happy to have me in your beautiful morning. And our goal, our intention is very simple. We want to get you started on a positive note. We want to have you face the week on a very, very positive note. So, challenges will come, difficulties will arise. It is, after all, in the nature of life that you will encounter those things that you never really expected to find yourself dealing with, that you will go through those things that you never really thought or prepared yourself, to say the least. But nonetheless, you've got to be able to rise back. You've got to be able to bounce back, and you've got to be able to pick yourself up, dust off the dust, and get on with it. So, this morning, I'm coming to you all the way from Polokwane. This is my home. This is where I'm based. This is where I do ministry. This is where I have my professional life as well. So, it is a very bright morning. It's not as chilly as we had thought it to be. I don't know how it is where you are. So, don't mind sharing that with me. Don't mind giving me that information. I love to know where you are tuned in from this morning. As I said, we're going to have a wonderful ride. And I hope that by the end of this podcast, we will be feeling so much encouraged, we will be feeling so much energized, and we will be able to tackle life yet again. For those of you who follow me, I've been doing this podcast, I think it's almost 2 months now. And some 3 weeks back, I covered a topic where I spoke about, do you really know who you are? It was a very emotional topic. It was a very emotional podcast. And, it made me realize the depth to which really people are head. It made me realize the depth to which we have lost a sense of ourselves. And as a result, we need to get fully back with who we are, fully in touch with the real people that we are. And that is part of the objective of today's podcast. Now, when I did the topic, do you really know who you are? I stopped short of breaking down on air amid the broadcast. And it made me realize this is a very sensitive topic. So I shied away deliberately from it for the coming 2 weeks. I wanted us to have time to calm down. I wanted us to have time to, you know, um, what's the right word, to gather or collect our emotions, if I can put it that way, because yeah, that topic was very sensitive. So today I always knew that this was a topic we're going to come back to. This was a discussion that we would be forced to revisit. And I am hoping that today we wrap it up nicely, we close it up nicely, in such a way that it doesn't leave the raw emotions out there. So here we go. From my own life, from everybody's life, there are disappointments, right? There are hurts, there are pains, there are things that we go through. And sad part of it is, we don't really ask for these experiences. We don't really, you know, plan or prepare ourselves for when these bad experiences come about, particularly because we never ask. No one asks for heartbreak, no one asks for pain, no one asks for bereavement where a lost person is lost, a loved person is lost. No one asks, for those kind of situations, but they happen nonetheless. We get into marriages with the hope that it would be forever. We get into relationships, love affairs, with the hope that my love for you, will carry on. We get into a parent-child relationships with the hope that, it would be a place for nurturing, it would be a place for love, it would be a place for um you know uh, 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 um you know good intentions coming about. But you know what, the sad part of it is that we do experience those parts where we never planned for anything, where we never looked forward to having anything, and sadness comes about. Now I want us to talk about dealing with those sad issues. I want us to talk about dealing with those sad circumstances in our lives. And this morning I'm talking about hurts, disappointments, and pain. Reading from my own book, The Mending of a Broken Vessel. I'm going to read from page 132. This is a chapter where I titled it, The Wounded Bleed on Others. I hope you do have this book. It's a book that I will constantly be referring to. It's a book that I wrote, that we sell. It's available in all the bookshops. And I hope you can get yourself a copy. Now it reads as follows. It says that in paragraph 1 of chapter 26, I went to Linting as a battered woman, broken by pain, bitterness, resentment, and rejection that ended up shaping everything about me. I was looking for help to overcome the pain that I felt I was being subjected to, that had somehow become a repeated cycle in my adult life. What I was not aware of is that I was also the carrier of pain and subjected those around me to the same hurt I carried myself. I bled on others. I was devastated. I was desperate to break the cycle and rebuild myself into a completely whole individual. Intuitively, I sensed that I was not well, that what I was living and carrying was an abnormality. At the same time, I carried on with my life as if I was fine. Now, the reality about pain is that it takes you to a dark place. And at this point where I am at, describing in my book, I was at my lowest. I was at my lowest in that I had already attempted three suicide, missions to end my life, but I had not succeeded. So I was at the darkest in terms of not even knowing who I was. I was at the darkest in terms of not even knowing, where I was going. I was at my darkest in terms of not knowing how to, relate with other people, primarily because of how I felt, primarily because of how I viewed life. It became a sad cycle for me because my pain, my disappointment, my hurt shaped my identity. And in so doing, it gave me a name, it gave me a perception that I, presented out there to the world. And as a result, no one knew who Ntabiseng was. I certainly didn't know who Ntabiseng was. And because of the pain that I carried. So my experiences, my disappointments, and my hurt, they caused me to form an identity that I did not know. Many years later, I would uncover that this is not the real Ntabi saying. So what am I saying? I am saying that as we get hurt, as we have relationships that break our spirits, as we get into relationships that hurt us, we end up forming a perception about life. We end up forming a perception about the world. We end up forming a perception about men. No wonder, it is not a wonder that you can, go on to some people, interact with them, and only to find that they will tell you that all men are the same, based on an experience with one or two men, based with a disappointment by one or two men. So those kind of you know interactions, if I can put it that way, those kind of experiences, they lead us to a point where we lose, trust in the opposite sex. We lose trust in other people. We lose trust in what we could build with other people. So it then sets us on a dark place. It then sets us on a place where, we feel that it is hopeless, it is worthless, it is an encounter that is guaranteed to bring about the same results for me. If I get into another relationship, if I try to love again, I will be hurt like I was hurt the previous time. If I try to trust again, I will be, betrayed like I was the last time. If I tried to embrace someone, I would be rejected like I was the last time. And all of this can set you back. It can send you to a very dark place. And amazingly, suicide remains at its peak, and amazingly, relational issues, our love relationships, our parental relationships, our employment relationship remains one of the most critical and forces that peak, that causes the peak in suicide. So relationships are at the core of our failure to deal with pain, our failure to deal with disappointment, our failure to deal with hurt in a more acceptable way. And what do I mean when I say acceptable? It's okay to be disappointed. It's okay to feel let down. It's also okay to feel hurt, when things don't go like they should in any relationship, when things, do not plan out or do not play out like we had hoped they would. It's okay to be disappointed, to allow yourself to feel the hurt, to allow yourself to feel the pain. But what is not okay? It's you dwelling in that pain. It is you residing in that pain. It is you living in that pain. That is what is not okay. That is what is not okay. And sadly, for most of us, that is how we deal with the disappointments. That is how we deal with the pain. That is how we deal with the letdowns. We get to a place where we have been left by an ex-husband. We get to a place where we have been left by, father of my kids, where you have been let down. And instead of picking yourself up, working through your emotions such that you can rise up and say, that was an experience. That is something that I went through. Divorce is what I went through. A failed marriage is what I went through. An abusive marriage is what I went through. A failed relationship is what I went through. But it is not me. It is not my identity. So I am not a divorcee. I am not a failure. I am not someone who dwells or resides in their hardships or in their moments of failure. The sad part for most of us is that, don't we really, or when we are being honest with each other, do we really not just glorify our failures? Do we really not just glorify our letdowns? And I say glorify that in terms of, we hang on to them more than it's necessary. We sit down, make a shrine of our failures, make a shrine of our hardships, and dwell at that shrine and cry endlessly. And I said in one of the preceding podcast, how long are you gonna weep for? How long are you going to dwell in that place where you cry for what was, where you cry for what was, what existed in the past, what you lost, what you no longer have? While it is okay to cry, it is also okay for you to learn that my time for crying, my time for for wailing and lamenting over what I cannot change has come to an end. And for most of us, sadly, we do not make. That moment does not register in our hearts. That moment does not register in our spirits. And, that is the sad part for most of us, when we fail to realize that, yes, I should have cried. Yes, I had every right to be mad. Yes, I had every right, to lament over what is going on, to lament over the unfair treatment that I got in that relationship. But now the time for crying, the time for tears has long passed. Many of us do not make, do not have that moment. We do not allow it to register in our minds. So we dwell, we end up residing where we should not be. We end up living where we should have long arisen and get out of. And that is the disappointment of humanity. That is the disappointment of mankind, that we tend to glorify our failures. We tend to call ourselves by our failures. We don't use them as learning curves, but rather we use them as moments that we batter ourselves with, moments that we hit ourselves with, that we ponder on them time and time and time and again. So, as you know, we get to that place where we live in our disappointments, where we dwell in our disappointments. But the danger in doing that is we don't see what is happening around us. Let me just retrace my footsteps and go back and say, when we ever we experience hurt, disappointments, and pain, our soul gets very wounded. The human element, the human being has three aspects to him or her. Any person has a soul, any person has a spirit, any person has an intellect. They have the mind. So we get to a point where we are saved. For example, that is my life. I accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. So my spirit gets saved. But what happens to my soul? That is the one that is carrying the wounding. What is happening to my soul? That is the one that is carrying the pain. That is where all the pain that I carried year after year after year, every disappointment, every hurt goes and buries itself. So if your soul is not addressed, if your soul is not adequately dealt with to help your soul to come back, to help your soul to rise beyond the hurts and the disappointments. You find yourself as a saved person. You find yourself as a lover of Christ. You find yourself as someone who believes, but at the same time, that believer who battles with getting over what happened in their lives. And that is what I would like us to tackle today. For many of us, experiences have led us to build a camouflage identity. And I'm saying a camouflage because this is what we present to the world, this is what we give to the outside world. Yet at the same time, it does not allow us to reveal who we are. It does not allow the real substance, the real core of who Ntabiseng is. For my own life, if I can give you that example, I've spent many years living, as a very aggressive person. I lived as a very confrontational person. I lived as someone who, and I don't mean confrontational in the sense that, if there's something that I don't understand, I would ask. But no, confrontational in the sense that I did not mind to start a battle. I did not mind to start a war. Confrontational in that you came for me, or I sensed that I was under threat, I will come for you. That was the person I was. And for the longest of time, I did not build any relationships because of that. Whatever relationship that I thought I built would not last, because sooner or later that wounded person would, their head would rise up. And as their head would rise up, then, the ugly type of thing comes about. And the people that I thought, were close to me, that I thought loved me, would instantly walk back. They would instantly turn their backs on me, while they were now dealing with the kind of intimacy that no one signed up for, no one wanted, and above all, no one knew how to handle. So my life changed when I became aware of the wounds that I was carrying. My life changed when I wanted to address, the pain that I was carrying. And believe me, your life can change when you want to address those issues as well, because we bottle them up, we hold on to them, and they cause our relationships to be miserable. They cause us to be in such a dark place, that we will laugh out there to the world, we will smile out there to the world, we will be happy out there to the world, but we cannot stomach the person that we are when we are alone. Is that your story? Is that you? Is that perhaps, the situation that you're going through? Maybe you may want to share that with us. Maybe you may want, to use this information and find it valuable for you. And I'm saying this because many of us are wounded, many of us are hating, many of us have experienced disappointments. They come with life. But many of us, few of us, are prepared to do anything about them. So, what is the starting point, of dealing with the disappointments of life? Self awareness It's the beginning of everything. We know when you become aware of what you are facing, you become aware of what you are living. When you become aware that I am trapped in the situation that took place so many years ago, that I am trapped in this hurtful thing that happened, yesterday. I am trapped in this painful thing that has not, released me. And I'm saying release, and I will come back to that. And it has so formed a part of my identity. It is only when you are self aware, it is only when you are fully conscious of the person that you are, that you can start doing something to actually change it. And what are the steps really? What does it involve, for you to change what you are going through? What does it involve, for you to face it, what you are going through? It's one of the most uncomfortable parts of life's journey. It's one of the most saddening part of life's journey. When you have to go back into your life and say, hang on, but this and this happened to me. When you go back to your life and say, you know what, regardless of how I try to run away from this, regardless of how quiet I am about this, regardless of how I keep quiet and do not share on this experience, but I was hurt, but I was wounded, but I am in a dark place because of that. And above all, I am crying. I am crying about that experience that I went through. What am I saying to you? Many of us have experienced hurt and disappointment, but we leave the young girl against them inside of the room when we step out to the world. We leave the young man who has experienced abuse inside the dark room when we go out and meet the rest of the world. When you have been raped, when you go out there to the world, you leave the young girl, the young molested child, you leave the young violated girl out, you leave them in a room, and then you want to try and then to go and catch up with life or do life by yourself. And that is a tragedy that many are experiencing. That is a tragedy that many are going through. The inability to open the door, the inability to say, this is what I went through, the inability to say, this is what I want to talk about, the inability to say, truly speaking, I did not have a pleasant childhood because I was molested, because I was raped, because I went through this. And I have spent the better part of my adulthood running away from it. I have spent the better part of my adulthood, trying to get away from. So now I am ready to deal with it. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not until you are ready to deal with the past hurts and disappointments that you can even begin to experience your healing. It's not until you have dealt with your hurts and your disappointments that you can actually, honestly face what your life is going through. Many of us are wounded. And as I read in my book, there is a paragraph where I say that many wounded people, I say that wounded people are never fully aware that they are wounded. They are also very oblivious to the fact that they have potential to wound others. Many people who are wounded do not even are not aware. They are not even honest. They are not even realistic. They are not even willing to take a look at what they're going through from the specific eyes of I am a wounded person. I have experienced hurt, and I as a result project it on to the other people that I interact with. So now, ladies and gentlemen, the first step is the step of awareness. The second step is the step of opening the door. It's very uncomfortable. Let me tell you that. It's very uncomfortable. When I was growing up, I loved my mother and I had a very good relationship with my mother. But my mother was someone whose discipline was very harsh. My mother would beat me. She would, her discipline was so hard that she would beat me. And in my view, this is my view, I felt that, being hit with an electrical cord, being hit with a wire of a kettle, an electrical kettle wire being put in a container of water, shut in there. It was a painful experience. I felt that the discipline that was being given to me was more than discipline. And to a certain extent, I grew up with bitterness towards my mother, and I grew up with a sadness as to the kind of parenting that I got. And when I wrote my book, The Mending of a Broken Vessel, and that was not the only disappointment that I experienced. Um, I also, had a failed relationship with the father of my child. I also had a failed relationship, that was also, had elements of infidelity to it. And I also had a relationship with my ex-husband where we married, and also I got to a point where I suffered, because of the infidelity and the abuse that I was experiencing in my second marriage. So you can imagine that not only those two, but a whole lot of other abuses that I document in my book, The Mending of a Broken Vessel. Where boyfriends would hit me, where boyfriends would say to me, after having sex with me, after being, it wasn't intimacy, I wouldn't call it that. After having sex, I had one boyfriend who said to me, "You are so dirty," and he took domestos and he took and he put it on my genital area. And all of those experiences, they left me wounded. All of those experiences, they left me battered. I also had a boyfriend who would hit me, and he hit me so badly that I did not, that I was not able to realize that um I was actually that he hit me so badly that I did not realize that um I was actually in an abusive relationship. And as a result of what went on with my life, as a result of what I was experiencing, I got to a place in my life where life, built, I got to a place where I built up very bitter experiences, where I built up very, um, inaccurate description of men in my life, that I just of my own self said, what, it's not worth it for me to be involved with another man. It's not worth it for me to try to have another relationship. And as and when I sorry, I had to do that. I sensed that I went off my cam, and I'm now using my webcam. So I think it's one of the technical issues that happened this morning repeating itself. So I'm just gonna go on with the webcam. Sorry for that. So I build a very inaccurate description of men. Remember this, I grew up in a very a beautiful home. I had a family, my mother, my dad. And my dad was a very loving father. My dad was a very, and in the later, he was an absent father, if I can put it that way, because to a large extent, my dad was involved in the church, and he gave a lot of his life to the church. And it left me in a state that I would his family, basically, with my mom, with all of us, the siblings. I had three siblings. It left us in a state where we would basically be fatherless during the weekends. And I think that was when it mattered most to us, because we all want to spend time with our parents. And to add to that, I was also at boarding school. Now, with the experiences that I had, with the kind of upbringing that I had, and also going to boarding school, to a certain extent, I was left, carrying this description of how men are. And then I went into these abusive relationships, and then I carried on with how, the abusive relationships added on to what I experienced, to what I carried on. And I ended up forming a perception of how men are. So this perception became my life. This perception became the way that I viewed life. And sadly, when I eventually got married to someone who's my current husband, and who loved me and who treated me well, I was unable to reciprocate the kindness. I was unable to love him, and be kind to him. I was, filled with questions, every kind of question. What kind of motive does he have? Why? What does he want from me? All of those kinds of things. So those were built as a result of the disappointments, the hurts, and the pain that I endured in my life. So, what am I saying? I am saying that they send me to a dark place. So, with you as well, that is what I would like to ask you. what dark place have you been sent to, and by the experiences of your life. And I also want you to take note that while they have sent you to a dark place, while they, you have been in a very dark place because of what you experienced, and you feel that you have every right to be in that dark place. And don't get me wrong, you have every right to be in that dark place. The question is now, have you decided to live there? And that is what most people are battling with, living in the dark place that disappointments, hurts, and pain has actually sent you to. So I'm asking this question today because when we get to a point where people are suicidal, when we get to a point where people are depressed, when we get to a point where people experience a great level of anxiety, it is simply because they have not allowed themselves, to get out of that madness. Yes, you can be disappointed. Yes, you can be mad. Yes, you can grieve. Yes, you can cry. Yes, you can feel abandoned. But the problem is when you allow yourself to live in that abandonment. You allow yourself to live in that state, that life has dealt with you. And if you can allow me, as I said, I am saved. Let's take it now to the biblical sense. The Bible tells us about the madman of Gadara. It says that, he was living in the tomb, in the cemetery. So he experienced whatever he experienced in life, and it drove him to the cemetery. It drove him to a place where he felt he belonged. But the problem became when he decided to live in the tombstone, because when he made the decision to live amongst the dead, living in the cemetery for him meant that he's now living amongst the dead. Many of us, that is where we get a problem. We are alive, but we are dead because we are living in a dead situation. We are living in a hopeless situation. We are living in a hopeless state simply because of our past that has chained us to the experience. So instead of seeing life in the now, instead of seeing life in the current daily, instead of seeing life in the day to day that you go through, you have lost all hope with regard to life. You have lost all zeal for life. You have lost all vitality for life, and that disappointment is now leading you. It hurt you, yes, and after hurting you, it's now robbing you of the now. It's now robbing you of a daily existence. It's now robbing you of a daily enjoyment of life. And that is the state that you find yourself in. I wish that I can speak to somebody and say, you had every right to be mad. Who in their right mind will not be hurt by a divorce? Who in their right mind, would not be hurt by a failed marriage? Who in their right mind would not be hurt by a failed disappointment, a failed business? It would be a great disappointment. It is something that you have the right to get angry about. It is something that you have the right to get disappointed about. But also in your anger, can you give yourself the opportunity to learn? Can you give yourself the opportunity, to reflect? Can you give yourself the opportunity to look about at where you are and say, what did I do? What can I learn from this? Where can I go? Most importantly, where to from here? And that is where we have a problem. Are you planning, are you planning a comeback from your setback? Are you planning your next step? Or are you dwelling in your difficulty? Are you sitting in what happened to you? Are you sitting, dwelling, and crying over what happened to you with no hope, with no understanding, and with no prospect of ever rising out of it? Are you hopeful about your tomorrow? Are you hopeful about ever coming back? Are you hopeful about ever feeling that you can live again despite the hurts and the disappointments that you are feeling? Look, with the madman of Gadara, it was simple. He was living amongst the dead. So sooner or later, it was just a matter of time that he would be dead himself. Because that situation, that environment, it was taking the life out of him. It was taking every living, breath that he had. Why? Because amongst the dead, you cannot be alive. That is why Jesus says, that is why the angel of God says, when they arrive to look for Jesus at the tombstone, and they open the grave, they peep into the grave and they realize he's not there. The angel says something profound. He says, but why are you looking for the life among the dead? There's no life for you when you dwell in your disappointments. There is no life for you when you dwell in what went wrong. There is no life for you, and hear me clearly. There is no life for you when you dwell in your head. Yes, you are hurt. Yes, you are in pain. Yes, you are disappointed. But what more is there that you need to do? What more is there that you can step out of this pain into? You need to step out. You need to rise out. You need to go and take that step out of the dark place where you are. You cannot live in your pain. You cannot wallow in your pain. You cannot let your pain absorb everything about you. You cannot let your pain take from you more than it already has. And I said this to someone who had suffered violation as a child. I said this to someone who had been, violated by a very someone that we trust in our home. And I said to that person, and I said to her, you cannot allow this person to rob you of your life. He has done this to you. That is a fair hurt, and you are feeling the pain. But do not allow him to rob you further of your life. What was I saying? What I was saying was, make a comeback from it. Rise above it. Step out of the hurt. Step out of the disappointment. Step out of the dark place, because you had every right to visit there. There are incidents and there are things that will happen in your life that will drive you to the dark place. There are things that will take you there. You never planned on it. You never wanted it. You don't even have a coping mechanism of how to cope with the pain and the disappointments. But you find yourself in that dark place. Hear me when I say this to you. You've got to step out of the dark place. You had every right to go there, but you don't have the right to live there. You don't have the right to live there. Many of us are dead in our pain. Many of us are dead in our heads. Many of us are dead in our disappointments. Instead of allowing ourselves to feel the hurt, the disappointment, and the pain, to cry over it, to lament over it, and eventually to rise up above it, we have decided to sit down there, to nurse the pain, to nurse the heartache, to nurse what we are going through. And that is what is killing us. That is what is taking life away from us. And eventually, that is what is leading us to a state of depression. Because when we are depressed, we harbor the negative. When we are depressed, we carry on with the negative. When we are depressed, we give room to the loud voices of negativity more than any other thing that can happen in our lives. And that is why we end up living in our heads. That is why we end up living in our disappointments. Because every time when we rise up, every time when we wake up, we are giving room to the disappointments and to the hurts. And I'm asking you today, where are you living at? That you have resided at? That you have made a nice, comfortable room for your pain? Where are you residing? Where are you living at? That you have made a nice, comfortable room for your heartache? That you have made a nice, comfortable room for your head? That you have made a nice, comfortable room for the disappointments? And I want you to realize today, in creating a safe space for them, in creating a safe, comfortable environment for them, you are nurturing them, and they are growing day by day. And as they grow, they suffocate you more. As they grow, they take from you more. As they grow, they steal every breath of life that is left in you. So you've got to allow yourself to rise above them. Now, it's not only a matter of rising above them, it's a matter of healing from them. Heal your soul. Right now, we are filled with many people happy but wounded in the soul, um, married but wounded in the soul, saved even but wounded in the soul. And how do we help people, start to heal their souls? And I realize with me particularly that people tend to look at me and they say, but what is she talking about? But what is she saying? And this is an experience that I had to come to my own realization with, to realize that what, I was functional, yes. I was a married woman, yes. I was a successful practicing attorney, yes. But I did all of that as a wounded person. And there was a room in my life that I had shut. And I took every experience of hurt, of disappointment, of abuse, and I put it in that room. Now, the first critical step of healing your soul, it involves opening the door. You cannot keep it hidden. You cannot keep it a secret. You cannot keep it, away from your life. Because the longer you keep it hidden, the longer you keep it, suppressed, the longer you run away from it, then what are you doing? You are giving it power over you. Then what are you doing? You are giving it a hold and a chain, strengthening that chain, holding firm to that chain, giving it power to drag you back. For as long as you are an abused person, as long as you have never let that abused child out, don't think that you can be a fully functional woman. As long as you have been a raped person and you are letting that raped individual, that violated young girl, keeping her in a room, like I was battered in my relationships, beaten in my relationships, financially abused in my relationships, and in my former marriage, threatened with a gun repeatedly. As long as you are allowing that woman to stay in that room, you are giving her power. You are nursing her. You are giving her, all that she needs to just thrive and thrive and thrive. The sad part is, as she continues to thrive, she takes the life out of you. Out of you. Have you ever dealt with people who you spot? Have you ever dealt with people who you are able to see and can sense that there's something wrong? Hi, man. Here, there's something wrong. But you can't really put your finger on it. And have you dealt with people where you go, hi, man, I only man. There's just something not right here. There's just something that happened here. You can't put your finger on it. Oftentimes, you find that there is a little girl. You find that there's a little boy crying. You find that there is in this man that you are seeing, in this woman that you are seeing, there is a little girl hidden somewhere who was left there at the age of 4, who was left there at the age of 6, who was left there at the age of 8, probably, who experienced great trauma and has not dealt with it. So the first step is to open the door and do what? Look inside the door. It doesn't help you to do this. Many of us do that to the trauma that we suffered as children. Many of us do that to the traumas that we suffer in our marriages. Many of us do that to the traumas that we suffer even, in the most intimate relationships that are supposed to protect us. We do this. We cover our faces. We go, it is too horrible for me to see. It is too horrible for me to look at. It is too horrible for me to think about it. And we do not know, we do not realize that it is in opening the door, in looking at what happened to you, confronting it, that your healing starts. It is in confronting what happened to you that, your soul starts to be mended. It is in confronting what happened to you and saying, you know what? I was raped. It is in confronting what happened to you and allowing yourself to look at it, allowing yourself to feel it. Yes. Allow yourself to feel that moment of violation again. Allow yourself to feel, what happened again. Why? Because it is when you feel it as if it happened right yesterday. It is when you feel it as if, it is happening all over again, that you are going to allow yourself to cry. And this is the most critical part. Many of us have suffered. Many of us had been in traumatic situations, but we have never allowed ourselves to cry over them. Can you allow yourself to cry? Can you allow yourself to cry for the abused young woman that was beaten by her ex-husband? Can you allow yourself to cry for the raped young girl, who was violated, by people you trust or by strangers? Can you allow yourself to cry for the young girl who was working in the streets, who was not in any way provocative, who did not invite anything to happen to her? And, some people will say, when they raped you, when were you wearing? That is not the conversation that we need to have. When they beat you, what did you do? That is not the conversation that we need to have. The question is, I am human. I should be treated with humanity. I am a girl. I should be respected. I am a mother. I ought to walk in the streets and feel safe. I am a young lady. I ought to walk in the streets and feel safe. It's not about what I did to invite it. The fact is it happened. The fact is it is sad. The fact is it has wounded my soul. So I need to go back. Allow yourself to go back, to feel it as if it happened right now, to feel it as if it happened yesterday, and to cry about it. Because when you cry, it is firstly your sign of saying, you know what, I have reached the end of me about this. I cannot, carry this anymore. I cannot shoulder this anymore. I cannot walk around with this anymore. And when you do that, you actually open the door to allow your healing to take place. Many of us have endured experiences which are not shameful. Let me rephrase that. Many of us have experiences which are not shameful on our part, in the sense that we didn't do anything to invite them. Yes, they are very violating. Yes, they are a part. They are shameful in that any civil society should not allow the women that are in its society to experience those things, but they happen to you. They should not be shameful in the sense that you should allow yourself to see that you did not invite them in any way. You did not invite them in any way. So allow yourself to cry for what you went through. Allow yourself to cry over what you lost. Allow yourself to cry over that broken marriage. Allow yourself to cry over that failed relationship. Allow yourself to cry over being a single mother. You didn't plan to be a single mother. When you had a child with someone, when you had a child with that person, your objective was not just to be a single mother. You hope to raise the child together. You hope to build a family. You hope to, achieve much more than what you are currently sitting with. And you know what? It's okay to cry over that, because that is a loss. It's okay to cry over that because that was not planned. It's okay to cry over that because that is not what you want. You loved yourself. You loved him, and you loved the child that you have brought into this world, and you envisioned the life together. But that has not happened. Allow yourself to cry. Because when you go into that room and you start looking at that young girl, and you start seeing that young girl, and you start crying for that young girl, and you start crying over that young girl, then you are going to, be challenged to say, but I cannot allow this young girl to sit here. I cannot allow this young girl to dwell here. I've got to release this girl from the pain that she's feeling. Many of us are not able to release ourselves. We don't release our past from the pains that we are feeling. Instead, it is better to camouflage. It is better to hide. It is better to behave as if it never happened. It is better to behave as if I was never raped. It is better to behave as if I never lost a husband. It is better to behave as if I was never battered. You know what? In doing that, there will always be this, you know, peeping Tom. You would be living your life, and there would always be this life, going like this. There will always be this rare hate that gets itself out, that gets itself noticed. And all the while, the world will be saying, but there's something that wrong with this child. What happened with this child? There's something wrong. The world will be battling to understand you. The world will be battling to make sense of what you are going through. And the sad part is you would know it. The sad part is it would be a part of who you are, but you would be unable to let go of it. So open the door. Open the door. Do you know that when you have opened the door, you confront the problem? When you have opened the door, you release, the person that is trapped in the door, and that is a younger you, and that is an abused you, and that is a traumatized you. You release them, but above all, you release their hold on you. Right? That's what I mean. You release their hold on you. But above all, when you open the door, you release for them. You make an opportunity for them to live your life. To live. When I say live, I mean to make an exit. As long as we don't confront what is wrong with us, as long as we don't confront what happened to us, we are not going to get to that point where, the door becomes open for that person that suffered or was violated or endured hardships. We don't make it possible for them to escape. We don't make it possible for them to leave. We don't make it possible for them to, get out of the situation that they are facing. So now let me tell you this. It doesn't pay us to mask up South Africa. It doesn't pay us to pretend as if we were never had. It doesn't help us to go on as if nothing happened. That is the culture of the world. The world tells you to get over it. The world tells you to, no, rise up, tinta dust, and then utswele pele. But you cannot really move on. What tinta dust utswela pele, as long as you have not dealt and confronted with what is happening to you. what happened to you on the other side. And I hear some people say, even as far as confronting the people who hurt them, if for you that brings you closure, then yes, do it. For me, it doesn't, it never brought me closure. I found my closure the minute I started being honest about what happened, the minute I started being vocal about it. With every day that I share a podcast, with every day that I stand before people and I tell them, what, this is what happened to me. I tried to commit my suicide 3 times. And, people don't realize that that is my chant of victory. The fact that I stand before people and I say, what, I tried to commit suicide 3 times, but here I am alive to share the tale with you. Here I am alive to tell you exactly what I went through. That is my shout of victory. My shout of saying, what, God was able to prevail despite the hurt, the disappointment, and the pain that I experienced. This is my shout of saying, I refuse to dwell in that place. This is my shout of saying, I refuse to reside in the negativity that the pain in my life cost me. And you know what? Every time I'm able to share this message with the world, every time that I'm able to share how I survived and overcame it, someone is being motivated. Someone is starting to realize, you know what? I don't have to dwell in the how I was raped. I don't have to dwell in how I was violated. Yes, it happened. Yes, I was disappointed. Yes, I was hurt. Yes, I never invited it. But you know what? I can rise above it. There are people who have conquered. There are people who have survived hardships, and I too can survive the hardships. I want to tell you this, guys. Many of us are so blessed. I don't know how many of us realize how blessed we are. And it becomes so difficult for us to realize the kind of blessings that we have when we are dwelling in negativity, when we are dwelling in pain, when we are dwelling in hurt. It becomes very, very difficult. And again, I like to relate things by the Bible. When we read the story of Martha and Mary and how Lazarus died, the brother, and when Jesus arrives, you get to understand this that I'm talking about. And this is the perfect analogy. The one sister mother says, because you are here, she went out as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, and she ran out to him and she said, but now you are here, everything will be fine. But the one sister, Mary, she wept and she continued weeping. She continued weeping. And, she did not see amidst her tears. She did not realize that this one that had come is the one who has been able to heal other people. She did not realize that, the one that had come is the one who's able to mend souls. So many of us are stuck right there. We are stuck right there in that place. We are stuck right there in that pit. We are stuck right there in that darkness where we don't realize that this one who exists, that this one who is Christ that we say we fellowship with, that this one who is Christ that we say we come to know him, we don't know the healing hand that he can bring upon our life. Now, my purpose here is not to preach to you, but I will not let the opportunity pass by where I can say to you that Jesus is the one who can heal every wound that you have. I have seen him heal my life. I have seen him heal, the greatest traumas and ills that I experienced. Imagine, someone sleeping with you, lying there with you, and moments later putting domestos on your private parts. Imagine the trauma that brought me. But I have been able to heal from it. I have been able to survive it. Imagine sleeping with a gun every day in your bed. That is what my ex-husband used to do to me. He would sleep with a gun, he would lie there with a gun. He would lie there in our bed and made me sleep with a gun. He didn't need to threaten me. He didn't need to tell me he will shoot me. He didn't need to tell me what he will do to me. But I got the message very clearly, especially in light of what we're experiencing, in light of the kind of marriage that we had. So I chose to heal. And I allowed Jesus to come and to heal me. I allowed the word of God to come and to heal me. I allowed, going into that room, confronting what happened, looking at it for what it is, to say, you know what, but I was abused, Mina. But now I was not, cared for in my former marriage. But now I was not loved in my former marriage. And to go on and say, you know what, if this was love, then I surely do not understand the kind of love that I was being given to me. I did not deserve it. It involved me to open the door and to confront what was inside. Had I not opened the door, I would not have healed. I would not have healed. So I'm saying to someone now, you are running away from what happened. You are tired of living in such a life. And what am I saying to you? When you constantly run from what you experienced, when you constantly run from the experiences, that pain, that brought you disappointment, hurt, and pain, you live a peaceless life. And I'm gonna read this for you from my book. It says, I inwardly says, it says that, my past experiences, my encounters, and my interactions with men kept telling me, your past, your experiences with other people, your past, your life, what happened, it will keep telling you, regardless of what is standing before you, regardless of the kind of people who are in your midst, regardless of how loving they may be. But because of your experience, because of your past, because of what you endured, you cannot open the door and allow yourself to see the blessings. You cannot open the door and allow yourself to see the love. You cannot open the door and allow yourself to see beyond the hurt that your life, past experiences brought upon yourself. Don't reside in that dark place where your past took you. Don't live in that dark place where your past dragged you to. Don't reside there. Don't live there. Hear me and hear me well. The fatal mistake that you are making is the instant you decide to live in the dark place where your disappointment, your hurt, and your past took you. Life is passing you by. You will relate every encounter that you have to the experience. You will relate every person, those that have never betrayed you, those that never did wrong to you, you will bring them into your past. I hope you can hear me, and I hope you can hear me well. As long as you live in your past, you are going to bring those innocent people. You are going to bring those people who never did anything to you, them to your past, and you're going to say, aha, you are untrustworthy. You will have nothing to back it up except your past. You will say, you, Jonah, are untrustworthy. Why? Because James was untrustworthy. I said it and I know. I tormented my husband for years. I did not see anything good out of him, despite the good man that he was. Why? Because my ex-husband was such a man who did not be kind, who was not kind to me in any way. I tormented my ex-husband for years because my ex-boyfriends abused me. Some hid me, some took money from me, to spend on other girls. Some, they were only with me because of the money. Some, they were only with me to take, from me. Some wanted to build for themselves, and they lied to me and they said, I love you, knowing very well that they are not loving me, knowing very well that they are looking for a business opportunity that I had access to, that I could advance. Some were saying to me, I love you, knowing very well that they didn't love me, knowing very well that they did not, they only wanted to have sex with me. I can count, with all my hands, the people who had sex with me. They should have just said to me, you know what, I find you attractive and I want to have sex with you, as opposed to telling me that they love me. Because when you tell me that you love me, I operate on the understanding that you love me. When you tell me that you love me and you tell me that you want to build a future with me, I operate on that understanding. And guess what? The disappointment and the hurt and the pain that I felt when I realized that I was just a sex tool, when I realized that no, he just wanted to have sex with me. Why was it not being that it was called for what it was supposed to be? I would not have been disappointed. I would not have been hurt. I would not have felt any pain, because I would have it would have allowed me, to choose for myself if I want to get into this or not. It's as simple as that. And someone I know out there is saying, but Mam Fundi saying, someone I know out there is saying, but Tabi saying, how can you just put it so bluntly? These are experiences that I experienced. These are things that happened to my life where I was broken, where I was battered, where I was wounded, not because I invited it, no, but because someone did it to me. Simply for that reason. But one of the greatest, testimonies of our lifetime, one of the greatest things that Christ has done, is that you are seeing me today on your screens. It's only for the simple reason that I did not allow the young girl in that room, to rule over my life. I did not allow the young girl, in that state to rule over my life. I did not allow the 23-year-old, the 27-year-old in Tabi saying, who did not know, I did not allow the 23-year-old, the 27-year-old in Tabi saying, who suffered a broken, left her in pieces that led her to commit suicide, that I did not allow that girl to just sit there. I did not allow that girl to just stand there. I allowed that girl and opened the door and faced what that girl went through so that I, the adult in Tabi, can come out. So that I can come out, so that I can live again, so that I can experience life again. Child of God, hear me and hear me well. Pain, disappointment, and hurt, they come as long as you are alive. Please understand that. As long as you are alive, the only way to show escape from them is to die. If you don't want to experience hurt, disappointment, and pain, it's not for you to live. That's the only way. So I'm telling you today, while they will come uninvited, manage them correctly. You have permission to come back. You have permission to go mad. You have permission to cry. You have permission, to feel humiliated. You have permission to feel distrustworthy. You have permission to feel untrust, pardon me. That's what I mean, towards the next person. But allow yourself the room to come back. Don't live there. You have permission to come back. I wonder who can hear me today. You have permission to come back. Allow yourself, while that moment leaves, while that experience leaves, to go on and feel every pain, to feel every wound that it is inflicting on you. Rise up and come back. Rise up and come back. When I was in my varsity years, and I fell pregnant with my second child, and I aborted my second child, no one warned me that I would feel such tremendous pain over that. And in years to come, in my adulthood, while married to my current husband, I cried for my child. I started feeling the pain and the loss of the child. I felt such a sense of grief. I felt such a sense of grief that as if that child lived, as if that child really lived and died. It was only then that I started to comprehend actually what happened. It was only then that I started to comprehend what I did. And believe me, it was sad because it was something that I did to myself. No one did that to me. I did it to myself. It's a decision that I took for myself that I'm not going to have this baby. And I did it. I had the abortion. But it was so difficult for me to forgive myself. It was so difficult for me to accept it, And I'm not talking about in my young adulthood life. No, I'm talking about in my adulthood life, in my full adulthood. I could not accept it. And I spent days and years crying over it. I spent days and years, with the sense of the loss of my child. Here's what I'm saying to you. Despite that loss, I allowed myself to come back. I gave the opportunity to come back. And I asked God, I want to get over this. Allow me to come back. Allow me to open that door. Allow me to get out of this, bad place, this dark place that I am at. Allow me to get out of it. And God allowed me to. One of the critical things that I've been able to identify with my life now, the difference between now and the then time said that I was then, it was that right then I was carrying everything. Now I don't carry everything. I don't shoulder anything myself anymore. I can give you a simple example and on a lighter note. So after Drum Magazine did the article on suicide, with my story, and after Travel FM, wanted to talk to me about, my suicide attempts, and I went on air, and people have been calling me, and people have been saying, "Mama, we need to talk to you," and it's so overwhelming because you get 10 calls a day, sometimes 20 calls a day, and these people are really, really, really in a dark space. These people are really, really, really in a bad light, and I almost got to that point where I said, "Lord, I can't do this," and I quickly realized, the reason I'm saying I can't do this is because I want to shoulder this by myself. You know how hard, how overwhelming, how overshadowing it is when you sit down with people and they tell you their problems. You feel so heavy. You feel like you're carrying everything yourself. And I can tell you this, I went to God and I said, God, I cannot carry this by myself. And with the full understanding, with the full knowledge that this is a ministry that God has sent me to, it's not easy. healing the brokenhearted. It's not easy, restoring broken souls, leading them to restoration that is in Christ. It's not easy leading them, to a point where they come to understand, to a point where they come to realize that, I may be hurt, but this is not the end of me. God can raise me up again. I can do this. I can face life again. So it's not easy, but I went back to God and I said, God, I cannot do this by myself. I'm carrying all of this, and all of this. And also remember, the people are coming with the energy that they feel. Some people come, they're still in that suicidal state, and they say, Mama, I feel like I want to end myself. Mama, I feel like, I drank pills and I went to sleep, and I with an attempt to commit suicide, and I'm surprised I woke up because I should have actually been dead. That is one message that I got, and I got it right. The first day that I did my podcast, I got that message, and I was like, "Oh God, how do you deal with this, Lord? What do I do?" I could have easily said, "You know what? I can't. It's too much." And as overwhelming as it sounds, I went to God and I said, "Lord, I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for the platforms that you give. I didn't ask for me to stand, on radio and talk about this. I didn't ask to go on TV and to speak about this. You made me go there. You opened that door. You said it is time. You said this to the world. I didn't ask to write this book. You said write the book. And as embarrassing as some of the things that are in the book were to my life, as a tarnishing of a reputation, if I had a reputation to uphold, I would feel, as sad as they are to the success of the persona that I believed I had built. As painful as they were, to be saying, who was out there in the world, admired by many people, respected in the legal profession, admired by my congregation, respected in the church, respected by other pastors. It took a lot of embarrassment. It was embarrassing for me to write about a lot of things in the book, but God wanted it that way, and I never asked Him to do it. But the instant I realized that this was God's project, this was not mine, I then said, you know what? I cannot carry this on my own. And that is what I'm saying to you. There are things that you can't carry on your own. You need to go to God. Jesus says, you know what? Come to me, all you who are heavy laden. And I'm talking about Jesus because I have no relationship with any other God. And I'm using the small g now. I have no other relationship with any other God. I have the relationship with Christ, the Son of Man. I have a relationship with the Holy Spirit. I have the relationship with God, the Father who sits on the throne. I only have a relationship with the deity in heaven. So if I had any other altar that I would go to, perhaps I would have gone to it. But because this is the only altar that I know, the altar of Christ, I went to the altar of Christ and I said, Lord, carry this on my behalf. I don't know who I'm speaking to today, but I think that, don't you think you have tried to carry this on your own? Don't you think that the disappointments and the hurts are eating away at your life? They have for far too long. Don't you believe that? Don't you believe that you're going to buckle under that pressure? Because I think you will. I think that it's too much for you to carry. And I believe that you're going to, if you carry on like that, you might end up feeling depressed. If you are not depressed already, you might end up taking your life. So I want to encourage you this morning. Can you go to God? Can you go to Christ? Can you go and say, you know what, Father, I can't carry this anymore. Father, I don't know how to make a U-turn. I'm so bitter right now. I don't know how to make a U-turn. I'm not like this. I wasn't born like this. We were born to trust. We were born to trust. We were born to have relationships of trust with people. We were born to have, we are actually in a relationship of trust with our country. Because my living in South Africa says I trust South Africa. It says I trust the government of South Africa. But the instant that I lose all trust, I want to immigrate. So maybe it's time you went to God and say, you know what, I cannot do this. I can't carry this. It's way. Maybe allow God to just say, you know what, I'm buckling under this pressure. Just allow God to come in and say, don't you want to just carry this for me? Don't you just want to walk this journey with me? Because the load really is heavy. The load really does get heavy. And if you don't know how to make a U-turn from the dark place that you're at, sooner or later, you will be dead. And I mean dead while you're alive. Isn't it that's what happened to the madman? He was alive, but he was dead. Because if he wasn't dead, he would have noticed that living in a cemetery is wrong. He would have noticed that I'm living amongst, dead people, and I'm expecting to get life, and there's no life amongst the dead. The angel said, "Why would you look for Jesus, who is alive amongst the dead?" So I'm asking you this morning, could it be that you're dead? I want to say this to you. You can live again. You can live again. It is possible to make a U-turn and to be alive again. It is possible for you to smell the scent of fresh flowers outside with appreciation and with love. It is possible for you to meet a man and love him and allow him to love you again, and see that I am loved, and see that I am appreciated, and see that I am valued. It is possible. It is possible. It is possible. But you've got to be willing to open the door. You've got to be willing to open the door. Open the door to what happened. Face it. Face it. And you will see that you can actually escape from it. You can escape from it. I don't even want to start relating the countless things that I have escaped from. It's just a blessing for me to have my life right now, because I think that I think I would have died in my in my first marriage. I think eventually, maybe my ex-husband would have shot me. I believe he would have at some point. He wasn't a man of outward rage. He wouldn't express any violence towards you, but you would see that inside he was hurt. Inside he was, from hurt, and I would see that, the inability to vocalize the pain. That's what makes me say, yeah, maybe one day he would have shot me. Maybe one day it would have been too much for him. He would have shot me. If I didn't have the courage to open the door, maybe I would be divorced from my second husband, my husband. Yeah, because he married a very wounded girl. He married a very wounded young woman, and she could not be very kind to him. She could not love him the way that he deserved to be loved. He could, I could not be anything more than pain to him. And it was only when I was willing to open the door to my past that I realized what blessing I have in him, that I realized what a blessed man I have in him. And it is only when I cried out to God and I said, "God, why am I wounding this man? Why am I so difficult to live with? Why am I so peaceless and so restless? And why can I not kind to him?" That I realized I was so deeply wounded that I could not realize the pain that I was bringing to others. I did not realize the hurt that I was projecting to others. And when I hurt, and with more hurt, and with more pain, I brought pain. With more pain, I brought pain. But I thank the good Lord for allowing me to walk out. I thank the good Lord for allowing me to face the young girl. I thank the good Lord for allowing me to face the batter, the abuse, and everything. So, what am I saying to you this morning? I'm saying, open the door. It's such a miracle that I can speak to you without crying. I wonder how many of you noticed that I never shed a tear today. Um, I wonder, how many of you realized I never cried? How many of you realized my voice didn't crack up? I never even wanted to cry. I never even felt the hurt anymore. And it's simply because I allowed the door to open and I allowed that person to leave. I freed her. I freed her. Because if I didn't free her, she would still be having a hold over me now, and I would have cried during this podcast. Can you see the power of letting go? Can you see the power of forgiving? I think I speak of forgiveness because this is it's a critical step in healing. Oh, it's a critical step. Remember, Jade says, "100% God bless you for the good work that you are doing, man. Thank you. And I need your prayers, ma. I need your prayers. It's not easy. It's not easy. I need you to pray for me. I need you to pray for me to keep doing this. As I do this, some people are thinking, there she goes again. She loves to speak. She loves to be in this public space. And people often say, Babu, Babu, Wa." It's not that, believe me. It's the pain of seeing the world. It's the pain of seeing the world in pain. It's the pain of seeing my sisters in pain. It's the pain of seeing my brothers in pain. It's the pain of seeing people chained to their past and knowing that because I overcame this, they too can overcome it. They too can overcome it. You too can overcome it. You can overcome it. The Lord bless you this morning. The Lord allow you this morning. May I ask you to do this for me? May I ask you to buy the copy of this book? You know, buy it for someone who needs it. Buy it for someone who's wounded. Buy it for someone who is crying deeply. Buy it for someone who has reached the end of themselves. Um, can I ask you this? Can you send me a DM in your box, in my inbox? And I'm gonna send 10 books out to people who need them. I'm not gonna accept only a name. I'm not going to accept only a name. I'm going to get you to tell me why. I'm going to ask you to tell me why this book. Tell me that it was, but tell me what happened. Tell me, share with me the place that they're in, and share with me a place where they are living, so to help them, so that we can help them, get out of myself if I didn't do this. And I know some people are gonna say, I know my manager, and I'm here, she's not watching. I hope she's watching. Um, and I know she's gonna be very mad. You like the book? They're so to allow so that they can heal. Susie, please don't be mad at me. Please don't be mad at me. I'll give away 10 copies, only 10, to those people who are in a dark corner, to those people who are in a dark place and who need to get out, who live, they live there. It's not nice, it's not comfortable, it's not a hotel, but they, they don't have anywhere else to go. They don't know how else to get out. So please do get in touch with us. Do get in touch with us. Thank you so much for tuning in. This has been a very emotional podcast, and I'm happy I never cried on it. Emotional because I'm feeling the pain out there. It's quite different from the one that I did on Do You Know Yourself? Because when I did Do You Know Yourself, I think my pain came through a lot. And yeah, today I'm feeling a lot of the pain that people are carrying out there. And it's making me quite emotional. So may I take this opportunity to thank you. May I take this opportunity to pray with you? Will you allow me to pray on this podcast with you for those people who need the prayers? It's not everyone who needs it. Some people, cringe at the idea of prayer, but for someone, it's a lifeline. I've never done a podcast. I think it's 2 months straight. This is the third month of doing this. And today I feel the urge to pray for you. Let's close our eyes. Lord, in the name of our Father. Father, in the name of our Lord and our Savior, Jesus Christ. Lord, I pray for my sister, for my brother out there this morning. Oh, Lord, I pray that my sister, my brother, my dad, my mom out there, that they see the healing power that is in your blood, that they come to understand that maybe they've carried on a lot. Maybe they've tried to make it without you. Maybe they've tried to get rid of the pain like I have. Maybe they have tried, oh God, to do all that they can to step away from the pain. Lord, I'm praying to pray for them. Lord, may your hand touch them. Lord, may your hand heal them. May your hand bring them in the Holy Spirit of Christ. May there's some things which are just too hard. There are just some things which are just too hard to do them without you. Lord, they need your presence. Lord, they accept their touches. You are not only a provision for sons. You don't only provide for us our you provide for financial, but you have healed. The Bible says you heal the blind man. And he saw could see again. Lord, let them see clearly. It is my prayer that as you heal, let them see clearly. The madman say that the blind man says that I can see people moving. Jesus, thank you. See clearly. We have seen you, Jesus, but we've not seen you. See, not see one is able to heal us. Lord, it is my prayer that someone heals out there today. It is my prayer that someone fully heals out there today. In the name of Jesus. The good Lord bless you. Amen. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for being a part. Don't forget the books I'm giving away, send that DM. Now, I want us to talk about this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful initiative bringing talk on you and only speaking about you are culture area states in plenty, your states in dealing with finances, how to deal with finance, that's normal life, children, you got husband. This is the platform that we want to use to give you the advice. This is the platform that we want to use for you to bring your options so that we can attend. I'm giving an email address right now, and the email address that I am giving out, it's for you to send through the problems that you have, for you to send through the questions that you have. Um, please do use it. Please do use it. Please do use it. I'm begging you. I know that there are people who will not they will not use it, and they will be crying and saying that I've got legal challenges. But we are here. We are ready to give you we are ready to give you the legal advice that you need. So don't delay yourself. Don't delay yourself. Don't delay yourself. There is, a platform. It's gonna be for free. It is going to be for free. So may I ask you to use it? I'm sharing it right now with you. It's the email. Please do use it. There will be a lot of good that can come out of, for you. You will be able to save money, and you will also be able to, get the advice that you need. I see a lot of people are just, out there. They are just out there. They are just out there getting, you're not getting the right advice. Oh, I think I made a mistake. They're not getting the right advice there. They're not getting the right advice. So let me allow you, to use this platform so that you can get the right advice. Um, so that you are able to, secure your future, so that you are able to secure yourself in any way that you need to get the right advice for. May I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, may I ask you that you are, you use this platform, that you use it, because if you don't use it, I can assure you that many of you are going to, they're going to end up getting in the wrong marital regimes, getting in the wrong form of getting about, looking for advice, but not even getting the right form of advice. And I'm saying this because sometimes when we give a scenario, we don't give the full scenario, so we end up not getting the right legal advice. Use this email address. Use it. Please use it. This is my request for you. On Instagram, I will post the email address, or you can post the legal questions for us, and we will be able to assist you fully in terms of getting those answers for you. We'll also be having, I'll also be creating a platform where I'll have people who can answer the more specialized legal fields that you send, which is imperative then that you send those questions beforehand. Please do send them beforehand so that I'm able to identify quickly who is it that is needed to help us address your more complicated issues. And I'm going to also implore on my legal professionals out there that, if you are going to be able to, please do get in touch with me so that we give you that platform to be able to, feature on this program as well, so that we are able to do good to this country. You are able to do good to our people in South Africa. Listen here, I had a beautiful time with you this morning. An announcement that we'll also be making is that we'll be taking the initiative of the legal talk. We'll be taking it province to province shortly, and on that one, we have partners, who will be making sure that it happens. So don't despise the days of the days of small beginnings. The good is definitely going to come out of this. I'm going to also say this to you, ladies and gentlemen, as we wrap up today. Please do be mindful that I will be motivational. It will take place. I have a beautiful, beautiful for you. I'm to doing a text week in the Sowetan Spain, a wonderful podcaster that I will be doing next week. Please do tune in. I will also share the link on my various platforms that you can follow us there. That is the only reason why we are not doing motivational Mondays, because our times with the Sowetan Live podcast, it will be done but more or less we've got a challenge in terms of slotting in our one, so that we can honor that invite. So we've decided to honor the invite of Sowetan Live, and we will be bringing you our podcast all the way from the offices of Sowetan Live. So please join us, and let's support Sowetan. They're bringing mental health to your platforms as well. So let's do that. I love you very much, and I thank you so much for tuning in, and I thank you so much for being a part of what I am doing this morning. And I thank you so much for all the comments that came through, for all the comments that I saw on my wall, on my DM, for all the people who just show us love, for all the people. This is Julia. We miss you, daughter of mine. She's in the Orange Free State, all the way from Mountain into the Orange Free State for her studies. Love you, girl. And then, of course, I saw Budukujo was also here. We are here. But you know what? I want to encourage you as you are on our platforms. Please do engage with us. We need your comments to come through. We need your comments to come through. And Mr. Seja Hendrik Morera says, God bless your heart, Mamruti. Oh my God, I thank you so much. And I'm trusting the Lord to keep pouring in where we take out. God bless you guys. God bless you people. And I leave this way. Oh, before I forget, please may I ask you to get a copy of this CD. May I ask you to get a copy of this CD? It's from my son, Kucho Malete. Those of you who don't have it on the digital, those of you who are not having it as yet, please make sure that you have it. It's got a powerful message for a time such as these. I will post up. I do. Those of you who follow me on Instagram, you see it regularly. And the CD itself is only 100 rand, and then of course the YouTube, not YouTube, and also the USB. It's 160. Please, you do get it. Please do order it, and there you will be able to get this music that we are playing. Some of the music that I'm playing on this show, really a lot of them is from Butukucho Malete, and that's the only reason. The only reason I'm doing that is because we do have the copyright to use it. So that's the only reason. If you'd like us to play your music and you do give us the copyright, to use it. So yeah, be welcome to get in touch with us. We will gladly play whatever music that you would like to see on this show. The good Lord bless you. The good Lord keep you. The good Lord walk with you. Love you. Mistake. I think I made a mistake. So I'm gonna, this is this.
Linzwigila Jesu Linzwigila Jesu Ayer mamele murena rita pulus Kiena Linzwigila Jesu Ayer mamele murena rita pulus Kiena bua linzwikila Jesu linzwikila iliwone lelikele inya ali vivi letimani kisi dilevenya Lao kiliwone lelitele ena hali vivi lona letipane isi dilevenya ulitiwa Lera levi mata mako kisiveru lila tela seti le mutolo untali kosalera levi mata mako Kisiveru lila tela seti le motolo mametse, mametse. Oh, angele, oh, Kiena, angele mamele, oh, Kiena, angele mamele, Morena bula sebe, ay que remamele.